Good Wednesday evening to everyone. It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. And do we have a show for you tonight? That's the question. I don't know. But anyway, no, I hope you guys are doing just great. I hope you're doing just fine. Who am I to stumble into your internet space and invade your perceptions? I am the one and only, the Dungeon Delver, also known as Bill Sylvie. I bring you classic role-playing stuff, news, views, rants, bants, live streams, live play, life as it happens 5 nights a week. The other 2 nights, you're just going to have to find something to do with yourself. I can't be with you every minute. Okay? I mean, unless you want to just like loop all my old content. But anyway, no, I'm not set up for a painting night. This would be a good night for it, Robert. And I wish I'd thought to do that because I actually might have enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, it would literally be like if I did an hour video, 50 minutes of it would be me prepping to paint. But anyway, how are you guys? How are you guys? Just sound off and let me know how you're doing this evening. But whatever we do, guys, whatever we do tonight, whether I collapse into an existential puddle of crises, whether suddenly I'm struck by a eureka moment, whether I'm possessed by the spirit of Gary Gygax and tell you guys what Castle Greyhawk was really supposed to be like. Whatever happens, tonight's live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Now, Hellebarde Games makes the kind of adventure modules that they would like to play, whether it's for 5th edition, for Castles and Crusades, or the OSR. Old school is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and right now, on their website, they are clearing out all of their in-print 5th edition modules. That's 10 modules to choose from, and that covers a swamp full of lizard men and mystery and a desert caravan trail with adventure locales all the way along. Use the discount code 5EOOP when ordering a print 5e module from Hellebarde Games at checkout and get 50% off. That's buy one, get one free for the math uninclined. And let me tell you something. I know these modules in and out. I was hired as the reader of cool for these modules. And I can tell you, the 5e on the cover means nothing to content and vibe. You got a little bit of legwork to do if you want some great old school OSR modules from great authors. Don and Lori McVitie, just off the top of my head. There's one in there from me. I do believe there's one in there. There's a couple in there from Joe Damiemi. You guys, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong with these modules. So check them out. They're our sponsor. And we love Hellebarde Games around here. HellebardeGames.com or on DriveThruRPG. I'm not sure if the in-print discount code 5EOOP works through DriveThru, but I know it will work on their website. Hail, Michael, Connor, Christopher Sims, Ben Nix, good to see you. Surgically repaired wrist. Good Lord. That is ouch, my friend. Kidney stone. Lux. My father-in-law, shout out to Don Wilcox, swell guy, great guy. Wargamer, and I mean Wargamer going back to the 1960s. I mean 3M bookcase games. Okay? I'm not making that up. he has been through some kidney stone hilarity and is finally on the mend. He went to get the last of them ultrasonically blasted out. So we'll hope for the best, not just for Don, but for you too, Lux. 5 mil. Drink your water. Drink your water. Yes, Robert, lots of Avalon Hill. I have his copy of Dune and his copy of Starship Troopers, just for example, from the Avalon Hill collection. But just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Watching on the sneak at work and planning a DCC Lankmar game. That sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a ton of fun. I would play it using AD&D, but what can I tell you? I just kind of roll that way. DCC seems a little too brutal. You know, just a little too brutal. I'm not judging. I'm not saying it's bad that you do that. I'm just saying that there's a different verve, a different vibe for different things. For example, I would not run a Lord of the Rings campaign using the AD&D rules. You would have to trim everything away. Everything away. Almost. With that said, I can trim a few things away and use Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and do a really good Middle-earth setting that doesn't require me to get MERP. MERP may be a good system, but it is a terrible system for the setting that it is. And I am all about, I am fine with genre and setting specific rules. I have said before that the best game you can play with first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is a Greyhawk campaign. When it gets stretched to the point where you're running fantasy superhero games, high level games in Dragonlance and what's the other one, Forgotten Realms, I just feel like at that point you might be better suited to go to a different rule system. Keep the campaigns, but you know, just kind of roll with that. I just feel in my heart of hearts that AD&D is best suited to a Greyhawk, a World of Greyhawk setting. I just do. I mean, if Alan Hammock were our guest tonight, he'd be throwing things at the screen. He wouldn't put up with that, and he would roundly and justly mock me, and so would Jim Ward and everyone else who've taken AD&D and bolted it onto other things. I just think there's a point at which you can structurally alter and stretch a thing. Like, okay, here's a perfect case. When I was a kid, and this is going to sound strange. This is going to sound really strange. I would disagree about fireballs in Lord of the Rings. But I think you and I are on the same wavelength in the overall. When I was a kid, I was, as you might have gathered from me going on and on about liking to watch wrench-turning YouTube channels. But when I was a kid, I was really into cars. I had a big carrying case full of Hot Wheels cars, Hot Rod magazines, Cartoons magazine. If you guys remember that, it was like Hot Rod meets Mad magazine. And I really thoroughly and completely enjoyed it. And I'd watch like funny car races. And not even funny cars or super stocks, but you know, I'd watch stuff on ESPN or you know, like the local UHF channel. You know, guys would take cars down, and I'd see like, you know, a T bucket. That's a Model T. That's basically a Model T coupe. and just like the passenger compartment set onto another frame, or God forbid a Corvette or a 55 Chevy, or classic cars chopped to pieces and rebuilt into dragsters, to the point that there was, people say, oh, it's John Smith and his Model T. And, the Model T was at that point 70-year-old tin sitting on top of a multi-$100,000 alloy engineered frame with a 400 cubic inch engine, a transmission that was so precise that it was going to destroy itself in the process of running a single quarter mile, and that sort of thing. And so when I'd see this as a kid, even as a kid, I was a grognard purist, and I'd be like, that's not right. Why did they screw up? And I would dream of hello, kitty cat. I would dream of the drivers one day coming to their senses and carefully taking this monstrosity apart and slowly restoring the car back to what it should be. And what this has to do with the price of tea in China and the entry cost for playing a role-playing game is this. I let a classic Chevy or a classic Corvette or a classic Model T, let them be a classic Model T. If you've gotten to the point where you're literally just setting a metal shell on top of a drag racer that looks like a 55, buy a plastic reproduction of the shell. Can we drop a D&D engine into a MERP's body to fix it? That would just make MERP. So I just, when I talk about AD&D and systems, I think you can make something that is compatible with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that supports something else. Gamma World is a perfect example of it. Gamma World is designed to be compatible with AD&D, and there's an interface point in the Dungeon Master's Guide for just that purpose. There's another connection point for Boot Hill. But let game systems be game systems, Mech Warrior doesn't have to also work for high fantasy. Cyberpunk needn't be easily translatable into a superheroes game. But that is how I feel about that. So when I say that I think AD&D is best suited to a Greyhawk style game, that's essentially it. I feel like, I can absolutely drive a nail into the wall with with the butt end of a screwdriver. It's not hard. You might pinch the skin on the back of your hand, but if you just kind of move it back and you limit it to short pullbacks, you can do it all day long. That doesn't make it the best tool. If it's all you got, that's fine. If I found myself on the proverbial desert island with just my AD&D books and everything else was taken care of, Gilligan's Island style banana palms and coconut palms and, easy to catch, slow, fat, tasty crab and that sort of thing, and freshwater spring, yada, 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 yada. And somebody said, well, we want to play a science fiction game. I could make it work. But with that said about Lankmar, if DCC is is doing it. You know, if they've got a good Lankmar setting for it, then by all means, don't listen to me. Play it and enjoy it. So speaking of enjoy, something I don't enjoy is being up here in the cockpit by myself Wednesday in and Wednesday out. Kyle has got a lot on his plate. He's super duper busy. We miss you, my friend. I hope you are able to come back to us. I know you're busy. I know why you're busy, and you will tell us if you wish to on the show why you're busy. But to my audience members, I just want to point something out. I josh about super chats, like, you can throw me a super chat right now and see how funny I think it is. But Kyle really is part of this show. You know, he's 1 night a week, 4 nights a month, generally speaking, co-host. Before I even started doing this, Kyle has been a great source of encouragement and fun to me. You know, I can be sitting here at 1 a.m. out in my office, morose, listening to Johnny Cash, feeling the walls of my bower closing in on me. And Kyle will link me to something completely ridiculous, like, you know, Australian Royal Air Force offers no comment on recent UFO sightings above Woomera testing, or stuff like that, right? And we'll have a good laugh. Kyle's good people. Kyle's exceptional people. If you agree with that, if you've watched this show long enough and you've seen Kyle's input on this show, if you ever feel compelled, if you're like, well, you know, I super chat periodically and that sort of thing, if you ever throw me a super chat and say, this here is specifically for Kyle, then it's for Kyle. If you say, half of this is for you, Bill, half of this is for Kyle, Kyle will get his cut. I guarantee it. So the next time you're thinking about clicking that button to show some appreciation, consider the fact that we are a couple of dudes doing this. Now, if Kyle emailed me tonight, that is his middle of the morning, early afternoon, and said, you know, can't do it anymore, Bill, that wouldn't make me feel any less than what I've just said. So, 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, $1, all for Kyle Schwant. Stand up and holler. He's a solid dude, and if he was in Melbourne, Florida, I'd go see him. Or if I were in Orlando, Australia, I don't know if there's an Orlando, Australia. Probably not. He might come and see me, but we are separated by Kyle and I could make an earth sandwich. He could put a slice of bread on the ground and I could put a slice of bread on the ground and we could make an earth sandwich. That's the distance between us. So he's good people and I like him a lot. So that's my Kyle appreciation moment. Yeah, the Iron Sheik passed away. The Iron Sheik. I always felt like, now look, I didn't watch enough WWF back in the day. So if what I'm about to say, you're like, but they actually did do that, Bill. See, Mike, we were talking about that last night about, you know, I know some DMs who did that. They put the Forgotten Realm, the continents of the Forgotten Realms on the far side of the world of Greyhawk. Just put it there. So you could go from Forgotten Realms to Greyhawk and back and, you know, all that. I'm not a fan of Forgotten Realms. Hate is way too strong a word to use for role-playing games, except for 4th edition. So I don't engage in that. But Twilight 2000 can be a lot of fun. But no, so the Iron Sheik, the Iron Sheik, around the Gulf War, they should have had him go just like full Saddam. But the weird thing was, they did that with Sergeant Slaughter. They made Sergeant Slaughter a heel during the Gulf War, which I thought was just the strangest, like the most bizarre. It's like American patriotism at an all-time high. Let's make Sergeant Slaughter into Sergeant Saddam. Well, and we were talking about that too last night. The Greyhawk continent. The Greyhawk continent was to be finished by you. And there's a whole world map. And a lot of people think that Darlene's map is it, that like you fall off the edge when you get to it. You actually have to look. Do I have this in here? I think I have this on this PC. I hope I do, and I can find it real quick. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Let's see. AD&D. Do I have? Okay, World of Greyhawk. I'm gonna find this real quick. Because the Darlene map is actually just a section of the World of Greyhawk map, and I'm gonna find this real quick because I have my Greyhawk map that I purchased. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Let's blow this up. So check this out. GM Van, hello. Yeah, Sergeant Slaughter got to be a member of G.I. Joe at least. They've added more clicks that I have to do now, by the way. So now it's like 9 clicks to get a screen share. Okay, so look here. I'm going to zoom into this. So look here. Look here, man. Okay, so this little section of map here, you see that dotted line on the right-hand side as we kind of scroll in? That dotted line both horizontal and vertical, that's all we get of Darlene's map. However, look at everything else that there is in the World of Greyhawk. Look how much further it goes. That's like 2 or 3 Darlene maps worth of stuff. So if you do a little bit of quick and dirty math and break out a ruler and figure out how big the Darlene maps are, then how many hexes, then how many miles in a hex, you can get a much bigger continent, and you have an entire world to go absolutely bananas with. Now, it still keeps going, but I would dare say that over here in this area, that these would probably be coastal mountains a la California. You know, like right over here, you're going to actually start getting to coast. That's how I would do it anyway. You might have it completely going on, continuing on. But you have more map to play with. If you ever feel like it's starting to get a little crowded, Gary gave you a little picture right there of more map to play with. And I almost wish we'd gotten a complete map there, of course. Are the bigger Greyhawk maps actually legit or all fans? That depends. Lux, you know what? I'm going to answer your question about that. I'm going to tell you what my problem with it is in just a second. How legit do you consider Wizards of the Coast? Because their World of Greyhawk map, I think, was a little bit bigger. But basically anything, in my opinion, that goes outside the bounds of the Darlene map is up to you as to whether or not you accept that as canon. It is entirely up to you. So, what the FR criticism is. The FR criticism is that basically, so I know people who use the gray box set, and again, they're like, yeah, no, man, this is not, it's lean. It's like, you know, it's just like Greyhawk. It's very lean. Yeah, then TSR started publishing books, like more and more settings books. The Forgotten Realms is already done. It's already built. I mean, there are FR modules where you guys know what I was complaining about in N1. N1 should be a Forgotten Realms module. And you just might as well make that guy in N1 Elminster. Because if the player characters can't get it done, well, just Elminster will just show up and do it. And so I kind of feel like Forgotten Realms is one of those, like, it's just the whole place is a Mary Sue Gary stew for Ed Greenwood, and there's not much for characters to do because you've already written the stories, Ed. You've already told us about all the things, Ed, all the amazing things that would be done and how they would be done and why they were done. It's the difference between Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms is the difference between going camping and going to Disney and staying at a hotel. You go camping, you got to get firewood, you got to set up your tent, you got to, you know, all that. Going to Disney, everything's done. You're just there to see it. That nice wooded area, that's behind a wrought iron fence next to Cinderella's castle. They don't want you stepping over the fence and walking into those trees. Stay on the path. Yeah, Elminster and Earth. No thanks. It you know, it's just that, like, everything's done already. You know, you go into a castle, it's the past castle of blah diddy blah. All the, you know, the battle already came and went. All the history is written for the Lord, the lady, the children, the servants, the knights, the army men. That's all done. And maybe some DMs want that level of spoon feeding, and maybe some players want to just walk through fantasy Disney World. I don't want to run a game like that, and I don't want to play in a game like that. Friday night's Gamma World game notwithstanding. I just feel like I just feel like there's it's they're pulling the creativity out of the DM's hands. If I wanted to read a fantasy novel, I would. What about Ravenloft with AD&D? Is author Trace Richards in the audience? Trace, you out there? Not my favorite thing. Okay, let's move on. Does Faerun and have a place for Rocky Horror Picture Show? Might as well. Now, as cranky old man as I am about the Forgotten Realms, I feel like for me, Pool of Radiance is a fantastic computer game. I love Pool of Radiance. Love playing some Pool of Radiance. It's loads of fun. Hey, Viking Hat, we were just talking about you, my friend. Came across this company. I don't trust them, MordorIntelligence.com. There's a computer security company here in the U.S. Called Palantir. Spelljammer, again, that is a distortion of AD&D. See, okay, old fuddy duddy on fire time. I vastly prefer a heliocentric common sense model to the universe. Magic and stuff like that, sure. But the universe still works like the universe. So, like when people like Bud Bill in the World of Greyhawk set, Pluffet Smedger the Elder talks about the sun going around the Earth and, so on and et cetera, and Greyhawk being the center of its solar system and so on. He would know. It's set from the mindset of someone living in like a 12th or 11th or 10th century Europe. So to that, vis-a-vis Spelljammer, the crystal spheres and, suns are tiny little stars that wing around their planets and so on. That ain't for me. But if you like it, do it and play it. I'm not here to, it's not like you guys are the local barons coming to me and I'm the king and I'm passing judgment on your suggestions. Quite the contrary. If you have fun with Spelljammer, Forgotten Realms, Maztica, Dragonlance, Birthright, Al-Qadim, Dark Sun, Mystara. Did I miss any? No, I think I got them all. Karatur. You almost got me. Then play them and enjoy them and love them. My goodness, don't let me yuck your yum. I'm just talking about if you come to me and you're like, what do you think the best way to do this is? I'm going to tell you, it's not Forgotten Realms. It's not Maztica. It's not Mystara. It's not Dragonlance. It's not Al-Qadim. It's not Birthright. It's not Karatur. It's not on and on and on and whatever. It's first edition AD&D and it's Greyhawk. Planescape. Well, I'm just talking about AD&D stuff. I don't. Eberron was early 3E, wasn't it? Okay, so Ravenloft is one of those things. Is Ravenloft or is Ravenloft not a place in the Forgotten Realms? I hear people talking about the Ravenloft campaign, the Ravenloft world, the Ravenloft campaign world. And I'm like, I thought that was just a little foggy patch somewhere in, was it Barovia? Whatever was actually located in the Forgotten Realms. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody pointed the Bozotron ray at me and I'm wrong. It's in another plane. It's in a demi-plane. Okay. All right. Very cool. Now I know. So Jack Photon, Spelljammer. Spelljammer took the idea of the medieval view that space was ether, that you could sail ships in, and ramped it up to 10. So you've got pirate ships flying in space, the titular Spelljammers, and all the baggage that comes along with mixing brass punk and AD&D. By the way, so I watched a documentary the other night on YouTube, but it was about the Ankythera machine. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's an analog computer that was found in a shipwreck, and it's about 2,000 years old. And it was all these finely meshed gears and controls in it. It probably had a handle to power it. And it was basically a predictive computer. Like if you wanted to know when the next Olympic Games were, like what the phases of the moon would be, where the sun would be, all this, and you knew like how many days in the future it was, you could turn the handle and then look at the readout on the dial face, and it would show like all of those bits of information. It was an incredible piece of technology. Here's the thing: the Greeks created it with a with a geocentric model, but it's so precise it still works. It still accurately predicts the movement of the stars, the planets, the moon, so on and etc. It's pretty freaking neat. Now, here's two interesting things about that. In kind of the same time period, and by time period, I'm talking about hundreds of years. I don't mean like the Ankythera machine was invented and then the following Tuesday this happened. I mean, and in the same relative space. So you had Greece, and then you've got Italy, and then you've got the Middle East, Babylonia, Palestine, Israel, and so on. But in Iraq, right around that time, again, margins of 100 years, they were making batteries. They were making electrical batteries. Lemon juice, copper, lemon juice with copper rods dipped in it, in clay jugs sealed with asphalt, and wires coming out. They used them for electroplating gold. Meanwhile, 1,500 miles away, I don't know the distance, don't at me, the Romans were screwing around with steam engines. Now, they didn't consider them very useful. They were just generally kind of viewed as toys. The very primitive steam engines. And then you had the Greeks with the Ankythera machine. Imagine if you could have gotten those three groups together. All right, that steam engine is going to be used to create electricity, which will be stored in these batteries, which will drive this little computer. How cool would that have been? How different would things be? The Egyptian light bulb. By the way, having studied ancient Greece, I can tell you one thing that I have discovered. It's much stickier than the new stuff. Moving right along. Did they have Minecraft? No, but they probably could have gotten Doom running on it. And then they would have sent an email to John Carmack that just said, "See? Hello, Dungeon Minister. Not breathing too much smoke. No, there is no censorship here." That's two horrible jokes, right? That close. Oh yeah. They did. They absolutely. They had miracle vending machines in. I can't remember if it was in Rome or in Greece, but basically, you drop your solidi in, and it would do. It would trip at counterweight, and water would shoot up out of it. Oh well, I should. Go to the temple today or get my toga repaired. Those wacky, crazy, what you call the Mediterranean folks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Babylonians. Oh, I got to check this out. AI picture of Bob Johnny. I'm gonna have to look that up. I've been so busy today. Oh yeah, we can't forget the Chinese were doing stuff with clockworks too. And they had the gunpowder going. Greetings, Jorge. Hello. Good to see you. The maple syrup mafia. Yeah, that a forest fire up in Canada. That must smell like an IHOP burned down. A Sestari would get you a pumice ball for bathing from the dispenser. That's right. I remember someone. This brings us back to D&D because someone once was one of the devs on Yigsburg wanted to have continual light street lamps. And Gary was basically they were min-maxing a bunch of AD&D stuff. Okay, I'm sure everybody has seen the meme of the RPG rocket-propelled grenade where somebody's like, okay, we'll fire this from a ballista. What it is it's a conical warhead. It's got a bag of holding, and then in the nose cone, there's a portable hole. And when it hits the target, it collapses the nose cone and pushes a portable hole into the bag of holding, which is in the hollow place in the back. And then everything within 10 feet is sucked into is sucked away into nothingness. Or another one is the peasant railgun. You line up 100 peasants or 1,000 peasants, and then, a move action is free. So you hand the first peasant a wooden rod and have them hand it to the next person. So that by the time it leaves the last person's hand, it's moving at the speed of light, and you can disintegrate an entire city with it. The peasant mass driver. Well, somebody was basically doing that, oh, well, if this is supposed to be set around this time, someone can make a Fresnel lens and you could have searchlights that could just shine out over a city to pick out problem areas and send the guards. And Gary's like, no, don't do that, please. And what's his name? Casey something or the other? I don't remember. All right. I don't want to indict anyone. I don't want to get any on me. Archimedes' death ray. Yeah. Yeah, I can't repeat that on the air, Death Angels. I will wake up tomorrow and not have a channel. It's what I try and warn people about. I screw up and say an F word sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to check the thing tomorrow. Which I want to address something actually about streaming here in just a minute, but I'm going to talk about something boring, or rather, I'm going to talk about something fun here. So anyway, this min-maxer and was talking to Gary about, well, why wouldn't there be this and why wouldn't there be that and why wouldn't there be the other, if you're going to have this. And the answer is it doesn't, it doesn't work. Do you know why the Romans didn't think to do anything with the steam engine? Because bonded, indentured, involuntarily hired servants who got zero pay and had to stay on the job even if they wanted to leave. You guys know the term I'm talking about. They had plenty of them. We can get these guys to haul these stones up to Palatine Hill. Why do I need a machine to do that? Your machine sounds suspiciously a lot like magic. People are made of meat. Yeah, but you know what, Death Angels, as a Floridian, okay. I'm going to talk about the streaming thing, but I want to talk about Mythbusters first, and I'm just putting this up here so I don't lose track, as I often do. I have a huge, huge problem with Mythbusters, namely that there are things that I know for a fact, this is not anecdotal evidence, that Mythbusters claim doesn't happen, can't happen, myth busted, that do. Just because they didn't work for you that one day at the former Alameda Naval Station, one time in front of the cameras, that's not rigorous scientific analysis. Case in point, they did an episode on Jaws, and their crowning achievement was not getting an oxygen tank to explode when they shot it. Therefore, oxygen tanks don't explode. They talked to a couple of diving experts who said oxygen tanks don't explode. After, of course, they shot one over and over again, or shot several over and over again. They use steam pipes, Damien, not steam engines. Here's the thing. I've lived in Florida for 40 years. And I can tell you, these are a matter of police report. These are a matter of actual report. I can tell you, there has been more than one case here in Florida where dive tanks have exploded. I don't mean they popped the valve. I don't mean that they split on a repair point. Boom. And in my lifetime that I've lived in Florida, there's been at least one death. This is easily accessible information. Newspapers, police reports, hospital reports. Yes, dive tanks can explode. I'm sorry. I just get irritated about that. Myth busted. No, it's not. They do explode. Moving right along. I mean, there's a lot of common sense stuff like, well, I heard a story about a guy once. What was it? An Allied bomber crew member fell out of a plane. Like he fell out of the bomb bay. He was moving from the nose to the rear or the rear to the nose and fell out of the bomb bay. Because if you know the arrangement of the inside of a B-17, it's not like, well, the bombs are stored in this special compartment. They're just hanging in the fuselage. They're in a rack between the nose and the fuselage and the rest of the plane. And so the story goes, a crew member fell out. And his parachute was shredded, or he didn't have his parachute or something. But the bombs that had been dropped before him started exploding, and the air pressure basically bounced him up, and then he landed, and the Germans got him. He was in Hamburg or Berlin or someplace like that. And no. A bomb blast that could bounce you up from hitting the ground would be like you were hitting the ground. You'd be jelly. You'd be mist. Not M-I-S-S-E-D, M-I-S-T, mist. So, anyway. How's it going, Trace? We are absolutely not bad-mouthing Ravenloft. We were not. That was not happening before you got here, so it's good to see you. So, this is a thing that just happened, and it kind of impacts me, and I didn't know if I should do a live show about it. I say it kind of impacts me. Parentheses. Kind of. Close parentheses. No, there have been people who've fallen from tens of thousands of feet in the air and landed in trees and so on, et cetera, and lived. This was a claim that a dude lived because the outward concussive force of bombs dropped from the bomber that he had just been in buoyed him up until he fell a short distance to the ground. And this only came up on my radar. When I first started doing this, all depends on the dice. Hey, last night, you guys saw it. If you saw the live stream, 2 nat 20s from 2 kobolds attacking one character. 2 20s absolutely hit. A d6 damage each. Should have torn the character in half. Snake eyes. 1d6 for each of them. I rolled a 20 and a 1 for damage, and a 20 and a 1 for damage. No, I don't think dwarves would use cavaliers or chariot riders in warfare. I think dwarves would be heavy foot, maybe on ponies. Like densely packed on ponies, but almost certainly they would work siege machinery. So getting back to the point, I once thought about putting this show on Twitch. I would stream to YouTube, I would stream to Facebook, and I would stream to Twitch. Facebook did the mystery. Hey, 2 hours into your video, you broke copyright on a piece of music. The duration was 1 second. What? Your AI played Name That Tune with 1 second of audio from the middle of my video where there was no music and decided that I was stealing a song? So I don't stream on there anymore because I asked them to explain exactly what I'd done and give me the exact timestamp, and no human ever responded. So I don't stream on Facebook anymore, and I won't until I get an answer from them. Yeah, they'd use rams, sows, screws, basically any kind of sapper activities. I think dwarves would be excellent at mining and counter mining. So I thought, well, one day I'll do this on Twitch. And then people were saying, you can't do it on Twitch, Bill. Twitch doesn't let you stream on other services. They'll shut you down. And Twitch moves, they move with a quickness there have been people, big streamers on Twitch. I mean, people, there was some guy, like, he's actually like an very high end, played at a very high level and was well-known college basketball player here in the States. Dr. Depression, Dr. Demento, Dr. Destructo, something like that. And he, I guess he didn't go pro, so he started playing Apex, or no, what's the one? Fortnite. He started playing Fortnite and streaming it on Twitch, and he kind of adopted this heel persona and, wears this mullet wig and aviator shades and a big bushy mustache. But he literally in the middle of his stream, because of something that Twitch didn't like, they deleted his channel. And he ended up suing them. I don't know what happened with it, and frankly, I don't care. But so Twitch announced that they have new rules. Now, when I come on here, I thank my sponsors, and I thank people and again, I have a sponsor. People who stream on Twitch and have literally tens of thousands of people viewing them on the regular, they'll have an ad banner over here. And of course, I've got my little self-generated banner down there, or they'll have, ads over here or an ad up here, buy Gamer Goo. Gamer Goo is the best drink ever. If you want to play good Counter-Strike, drink Gamer Goo, use code, Bill Rocks to receive 50% off a case of Gamer Goo. Now, here's the thing. I have over here, as you guys can see, my Patreon, my Subscribestar, although Subscribestar is not paying me anything because I have 4 subscribers on Subscribestar, and none of them have renewed their subscriptions. And Subscribestar will not auto debt unless you have 5 at least. But anyway, and I did that because people were like, I don't want to support Patreon and their policies. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do Subscribestar. But it's anyway. Well, Ben, I'll get to that in just a minute. I'm going to put that up there. Actually, I'm not going to put it up there. I'm going to star it. And then I'll come back to it. But Twitch announced if you guys super chat me, YouTube takes 30%. If ads run on my videos, YouTube takes 30%. YouTube takes money from me. But if you guys subscribe to me, if you guys just feel like throwing me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal Direct, YouTube gets none of that. If I reached out to a company, Bob's Miniatures, and Bob said, put me a big ad banner over here, over your wall of shame, Bill, Bob's Miniatures, and I'll pay you $50 a month. YouTube would get none of that. And I could surround myself with ads. I could look like MSNBC did back in the late 1990s. Remember that? They'd have like 5 tickers going across the bottom and pop-up windows. And they did a parody of it on SNL where the hosts are like trying to look around all the pop-ups that are coming up on the MSNBC screen. Sure, if you should shoot me something on PayPal. Or you could buy my game writing. But but YouTube wouldn't get any of that. What Twitch realized was that the donations and other stuff that people were paying were nothing compared to the money that big Twitch streaming teams were getting paid by sponsorships. You'd have a team, you'd have people playing CS:GO and Fortnite and Rocket League and I don't know, Team Fortress. And between matches, when they'd be, I guess putting liniment on their hands and getting up and taking a pee and drinking a Dr. Pepper and then coming and sitting back down. They would run ads and they'd get paid a lot of money to do it. And Twitch said, you're not going to do that anymore. Those are no longer allowed. You can't make money on ads because we don't make money on ads. And what this is going to do, let's say I was on Twitch. Let's say I was on Twitch and I come out and every time, and they're just like across the board. You can't have embedded ads. You can't have this ad. You can have that ad. If I came in and said, yeah, this stream's brought to you by Hellabard Games, they could literally, if they wanted to, shut the stream off right then and kick me off of Twitch, take all of my money, everything that was pending payments, just remove all of that to them and lock me out of my account and say, you're done. There's no appeal. You're never coming back here. You are finished. And they've done it to people before. They did it to that Dr. Self-Destruct guy. He actually ended up suing them. I don't know what the status is. I don't think he's going to win because Twitch is part of Amazon. But if you were ever looking for me to go to another platform like Twitch, forget it. I don't like YouTube. But of all the bad decisions to reach you guys, it's the best. Of all the bad platforms, and people are like, go to Subscribestar, not Subscribestar, go to BitChute, go to the, this, go to that. Are the 4,600 and some subscribers I've got here all going to follow me? No, about a third are. And I'm not the level of popular that I would ever recover from that. And there's one of them, bless you, whoever said this, but there was somebody that said, I think if I'm wrong about this, I apologize. It was either Rumble or Odyssey. And I think it was Odyssey. And I looked at them and I said, okay, let's check out Odyssey. We take like 1.2%. That's absolutely fair. That's ATM transaction fee levels of fair. Let's check them out. How did they pay? Crypto. I don't want that. I mean, we can have an argument about crypto until dawn, but the fact of the matter is that, when people say, do you know what one Bitcoin is worth, Bill? If it's worth anything, then it's a failure, because if you're willing to say, I'll trade your crypto amount for this much US money, why don't I just keep my US money? Why don't I just use my US money? It's not replacing anything. But I'm not here to argue about crypto. I'm talking about what Twitch did and what other venues might end up doing. Hell, it might come to YouTube. YouTube might say, might look at streamers and go, they're running interstitials and they're doing this and they're doing that. Give us money or get out. So it could happen. It could happen. But somebody had asked, and I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so Ben asked this. If Twitch does not allow streamers to use different platforms, how is it people post it to YouTube after the fact? They don't want you streaming on YouTube and on Facebook and on BitChute and on Rumble and also streaming on Twitch at the same time. They don't want you to simulcast. If you get caught simulcasting, channel shut down. And plus, Twitch is pretty monstrous. I don't mean that in big. I mean in terms of sheer awfulness. You guys may not remember this. I talked about it once upon a time. But a year or two ago, all of Twitch's source code got leaked. Big deal. It's HTTPS pumping out, what is it? MP4 video, you know? So what? Embedded in the source code were commented sections of code that indicated that if you complained about certain Twitch streamers, it would never be escalated. And if someone clicked the escalation button, it would go to their friends who work in Twitch corporate. That whoever complained, their complaint would be handled. And there are certain C-based orgs located in Clearwater who use the word handled in a specific context that I mean it. It was in the source code. It was in the leaked source code. If you click, this person is, doing this, and this wrong, it never reached the proper people because the machine code would prevent it from happening. And if anyone was told about it, it would be one of their friends. Viking Hat says, what I want to know is why all these crashing UFOs only crash somewhere the authorities can grab them quickly. Why don't they crash in the Congo and the locals auction it off? That's a good question. That's a good question. I saw this comment. This is kind of ancillary to that. Somebody said, why don't we see more meteors hitting the Earth? And somebody said, meteors hit the Earth all the time. Our planet is mostly ocean. The majority of our planet is ocean. Like one of the furthest places you can get from anywhere is called Point Nemo. And it's off the west coast of South America. It's north of Antarctica, but it's between like South America and New Zealand. And they actually use it as a dumping point for satellites these days. And by dumping point, I don't mean they haul them out on a ship and push them over. I mean, they deorbit them so that they fall there. And if there's anything left, it splashes because the ocean is exceptionally mountainous and deep there. But you could have something like the size of that meteor that hit Chelyabinsk a few years ago in Russia. unless there happened to be a tracking ship waiting near Point Nemo to see where a piece of space junk was going to come down, odds are we'll never know about it. Just blip, because it's in the middle of the gosh darn ocean, the middle of nowhere. Now, you couldn't have something like the Chicxulub impactor hit, because the good people of New Zealand, Australia, South America, and then eventually the whole world would be like, my, that's some warm rain that doesn't seem to be stopping for any apparent reason. And didn't there used to be a South America? There's just this archipelago right about where Chile used to be. And what happened? So, yeah, asteroids that cross the Earth's path and become meteors and survive, most of them land in the ocean. You want to find a meteor? Go look around on the seafloor. And the country with more possibilities to get meteors is Russia, and they do. Yes, they do. No, you don't, Michael. Do you want Shoggoths? Because, hang on, I'm going to put this on the screen. Do you want Shoggoths, Michael? Because that's how you get Shoggoths. Let's go diving and find Mork. Nanu, nanu. Listen to me, Orbital Air. I'm here to tell you, I tried to warn you. Buenos Aires was an inside job. Meteors don't melt city blocks. It was an inside job. I tried to warn you. You wouldn't listen to me, people. I think North Dakota's a myth. We've tried to give North Dakota back to the Canadians. They won't have it. Well, yeah, Point Nemo is the Buck's trying to kill former SS. Point Nemo is where they're going to drop the ISS in like 15 or 20 more years, if that long, which sucks. I think that's terrible. And another one is, the Hubble. The Hubble was designed to be put back inside a space shuttle, brought back to Earth, refurbished, and possibly reused again, or put in the National Air and Space Museum. Oh, it was a wacky one not too long ago. The flat earthers were working on this too, but basically they were making the claim that there are no forests. They're like, that's basically grass. And mesas are not volcanic. So if you don't know what makes a mesa, this is pretty cool. If you look up close-up shots of the Devil's Tower in, is it Colorado or what? No, it's Wyoming. The Devil's Tower in Wyoming is a mesa, and it is a basalt plug. Superheated basalt comes up and it forms a caldera. Over millions of years, the volcano erodes away and leaves this incredibly hard rock. And you wind up with a mesa. And the American Southwest was a gargantuan spread of volcanic activity hundreds of millions of years ago. So what some wackadoos... No, I like the ISS. But some wackadoos claim that the mesas are petrified tree stumps, and that when giants roamed the earth, they cut down all the forests, all the primordial forests. And the trees you see today, the trees back then were like hundreds of miles tall, and the trees you see today are literally the equivalent of grass. Look up no forests on YouTube and you'll find some of the wackadoo videos. What we should have been doing with the shuttle was parking was parking the central fuel tanks in a storage orbit and then bolting them together to make a space station out of. There's a lot of room in those. And I think I once figured out, I was talking to Kyle about this and I don't remember the volume, but it was many kilometers of living space inside those things. Even if you like had to allocate certain amounts to storage, if they'd started like from the first shuttle mission all the way to the last shuttle mission, presuming that the last shuttle mission was truly the last shuttle mission, it would have dwarfed the ISS. The ISS would have been the equivalent of a corner store compared to the amount of space that you would have had in these things. I mean, yeah, you would have had to have hauled up Mylar and Kapton to wrap them in, and there'd be supplies. You'd have to have a certain amount for greenhouses to produce oxygen and food and so on and et cetera. Yes, that's the one. Kyle and I were discussing that, but it would have been pretty cool. It would have been pretty cool. I know in 2003 the ISS was still running on Windows 2000, which was fairly new at the time. They were running like a very tightened up and locked down Windows 2000 because I saw the computers that were going to be sent. But yeah, the external tank workstations would have been, and how cool would that have been? It's an actual city in space, a side for you Mobile Suit Gundam fans. Side 0.5. When NT server had its charm for the day, I ran an NT4 Service Pack 6 install as server on a Pentium 166 with a 128 megs of RAM for the house for a few years, and then I switched it to Windows 2000 Enterprise server and a Pentium 200 MMX, and ran that for a long time. And we had a domain, we had logins, we had file shares. It ran as a print server. We had a very professional Windows setup here in the house. I do remember the IT Crowd episode with a robot. What operating system is it? Vista! We're going to die! Moz is my spirit animal. Morris is absolutely my spirit animal in IT. So it's Dungeons and Dragons. What is that, kind of a sex sort of thing? Oh, far from it, Jen. Not putting a spinner facility in orbit? You mean like the Blade Runner cars? Those are atmospheric vehicles. Why would you put it in orbit? Or did you mean spinner like spinning on an axis? I just wish all of the stuff that Stanley Kubrick and Arthur Clarke had predicted for 2001, like moon bases, Pan Am shuttle flights to massive space stations. Why did we have to get malevolent AIs? You know, alien apotheosis. Why couldn't we have gotten that? No, we got malevolent AIs. So I saw this posted up, and it was like, science fiction is crazy. Remember that scene in 2001 when two astronauts don't talk to each other? They just eat their meals over tablet computers while an AI plots their demise. I tell you what, when it comes, I am not one of those American simps that thinks Britcoms are the be all end all, and there's nothing on American TV that can compare. Blah 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 blah. Because there's a lot of American shows that knock Britcoms into a cocked hat, and I'll fight you on that. There are very funny British TV shows. Oh, and Kubrick also said that A Clockwork Orange was probably the way the world was while 2001 was going on in space, and he wasn't far off the mark. Maybe missed it by 20 years, but otherwise. But a don't miss if you haven't seen it. Don't watch clips of it on YouTube. Watch the entire thing. I promise it's going to be on one of your basic streaming channels. Is Spaced. Spaced is British Gen X nerds' love letter to being forced to grow up in the 1990s by circumstance. And there are a few specific UK-isms, but the time that the movie Spaced was going on, the time that the TV show Spaced, rather, was set in, was a significantly tumultuous time in my life. And a lot of the cultural touch points, comic books, role-playing games, video games, going to clubs, clustering up with your friends, feeling like you were going to be 28 forever and ever, and it was never going to stop. It hits. It's a comedy show. It's a zany comedy show, but there's a few points in it where you're just like, ow. And it came out in that time period too, so it's not like some weird warped nostalgia view from Zoomers. It came out in the mid late 90s. So I mean, Simon Pegg created the thing. So Spaced is worth your time. Yeah, the American pilot of Spaced and the American pilot of the IT Crowd. Don't watch them. John Carpenter's Dark Star vision of the future. I don't think we're that far off that one either. Yes, Dark Star was to Alien as Chainmail was to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Fight me. Let's go. Yeah, remember when we were laughing at the thousands and thousands of directives crammed into RoboCop's BIOS? At the ridiculousness of how he was acting, and now that's what people actually want and expect I am not Sergeant Pinback. My name is, what was it? Michael from Pinback killed himself. It's described how he did it in the book too. It's pretty horrible. He realizes that, like, you know, the Dark Star's mission is like 40 years or something like that. So he hands his he hands his stuff to the guy they think is Pinback, like hands him his spacesuit, you know, strips it all off, opens the hatch to one of the liquid oxygen containers, and dives in. And somebody comes along and they're like, Pinback, close that hatch. And he's like, but I, clank, get your suit on. We're taking off soon. No. Cameron didn't steal it. I mean, O'Bannon rewrote Dark Star over and over and over again until he came up with a horror movie. And well, I mean, of course, first it would have been Ridley Scott, but you know, Scott was the one that got his shot at directing it in '79. But O'Bannon was pretty funny about it because he originally, and this is the universality of the script, and Kyle and I have talked about this before. Alien, the script for Alien was written for all men. All the characters' names. All of the characters' names, none of them in the script had first names. Ripley was a guy. Ripley was literally just a guy. Ash, they Dallas, all of them were guys. They changed nothing. They cast a couple of women and gave them female first names. And that's it. That's all they did. And the movies work just as effectively. Exactly, Viking Hat. I think O'Bannon did have some involvement with Jodorowsky's Dune. There was also a lot of H.R. Giger in that. And as I recall, either Jodorowsky or O'Bannon was super pissed when they saw Star Wars on the big screen because the technical look of Star Wars, the lived-in sci-fi look, was allegedly theirs. But that's another discussion. But back to Aliens. So they changed it. But one of the reasons that he had done that was O'Bannon envisioned the alien doing what it does, and he said, "I'm going to make guys that go to see this horror movie really uncomfortable because the alien is literally going to have sex in their bodies to make another alien, because it's going to be all men having this done to them." And that still happened in the movie, you know, with Ash, or with William Hurt's character. I can't believe I'm going blank on that. But not William Hurt. Damn it! What is John Hurt's character? Senior brain is rotting out on the bottom. So yeah, John Hurt's character, you know, gets a very special hug from a facehugger that loves him very, very much. So yeah, O'Bannon did that on purpose. Like, he specifically wanted the alien to reproduce like that and to freak men in the audience out. Like, they thought it was, you know, it's not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. Kane, thank you, Orbital Air, Kane. John Hurt's character, Kane. But by making Ripley a woman, it didn't. Nothing was affected. She was a tremendously effective sci-fi heroine, a final girl, if you will, but still, Jones, you know, sounded like Kirk there for a second, talking to Leonard McCoy. Jones. But anyway, that's what I think about that. They do, Michael. They do. If you've ever read the Weyland-Yutani report and you treat Prometheus and following films, if you treat those as canon, that David created the xenomorphs out. He used the DNA for the engineers' bioweapons as a baseline, but he also built them up out of that woman's DNA. The perverse way in which they make more aliens was because of the body parts he had to work with. The cat was here. Anyway. So now I'm going to talk about really bad. Yeah. Well, there's categories of bad films. Okay. There's bad movies. A bad movie might be something like, I don't know. It's a bad movie. Now, a lot of people say, well, if you can mock it, if you can make good jokes out of it, it's not a bad movie. It's a good bad movie. That's not what I'm talking about. You can MST3K any movie, any TV show. It doesn't matter. A bad movie would be a movie like, I don't know. Plan 9 from Outer Space. That's low hanging fruit, but Plan 9 from Outer Space. Inchon would be a bad movie. Then you have a category of good bad movies. That is movies that you know are legitimately not good cinema, but you watch them and you enjoy them anyway. Message from Space. You can find it on YouTube. Message from Space, Japan's answer to Star Wars. International cast, budget of about $6. All the models on strings and rubber terrain to crash them into that Japan could afford at the time. Message from Space is a good bad movie. Then you have the category of bad good movies. A bad good movie would be something like Moon 44. It would be something like Heaven's Gate. Basically, a bad good movie is a movie that has all of the elements necessary to succeed, but it doesn't. Superman Returns is a bad good movie. You know? And then, of course, you have good movies, which I don't think I have to describe what a good movie is. But broadly, you've got those categories of movies. The Room is either a bad movie or a good bad movie, depending on who you talk to. I think it's a bad movie. But we got some memes out of it, didn't we? I didn't hit a Oh, hi, Mark. Catch. Good. Conan the Barbarian. Great cinematography, great writing, great cast, great music, great editing, great story, great characters, great acting, just across the board. That's a good movie. Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, yes, Return of the Jedi, good movies. The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner, Alien, Aliens. Alien 3 is a good movie. Why do bad things happen to good people? Because they're in bad movies. Watch this, guys. Volcano God, bad things happen to good people because they don't super chat me. Conan the Destroyer is a good bad movie. There's no two ways around it. It is a good bad movie. It's a really good bad movie. Wing Commander is a bad movie. I'm gonna piss you guys off a lot, and I'm gonna categorize Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings as a good movie. It should have succeeded. It didn't. It just didn't work. And I mean, your mileage may vary. I know people who gush about Joe versus the Volcano. Believe it or not, Michael Connor, I know people who like love that movie. They're like, "Oh man, this is great." That was when Hanks was doing, he was doing Splash, and he just did this, that, and the other. Oh, it's fantastic. The Fifth Element is a good movie. I came around on it. I used to think it was a good movie. The Fifth Element is a good movie. I know, Orbital, like I said, I'm making myself into a brass target, and I shouldn't about it. I mean, I'm a lifelong Tolkien nerd too. You have an acceptable pastiche of watching Lord of the Rings if you watch the Rankin Bass the Hobbit, then Bakshi's abortive attempt, and then the Rankin Bass Return of the King. A bad adaptation is the Gene Deitch adaptation of The Hobbit that clocks in at like 11 minutes. The Hobbit trilogy, though, those are good movies. Saw the first one in the theater, never had a desire not only to not see the other ones, but to not see them at all, to never like rent them or anything. Rankin Bass Hobbit is good for a lot more reasons than that, Injun Joe. It's good for Richard Boone as Smaug. That is so worthy. Richard Boone as Smaug is chef's kiss. All of the voice acting in it is phenomenal. And it makes me wonder did Richard Boone read The Hobbit? Did he know about The Hobbit? Because remember, he played cowboys for the most part. And I'd like to think that Richard Boone cracked open a copy of The Hobbit and read it cover to cover and said, that's pretty good stuff right there. But probably not. He probably just wanted to make one more paycheck for his family before he passed away from cancer shortly thereafter. And John Huston is Gandalf. John Huston was Gandalf for me right up to the moment at the beginning of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. John Huston, like, I'd read The Hobbit, I'd read The Lord of the Rings, I'd hear John Huston's voice in my head when I was reading Gandalf's parts. Aquaman got an extra bad on it from Left Hand. We're gonna be dusting Fallout off of things for a long time, Jimmy. I feel like it's finally like settling. It may be safe to come up out of our shelters, but there's going to be a lot of radioactivity out there about getting stuff made for a long time. So here's something that nobody believes, that people are like, you're doing that Berenstein thing. I remember distinctly in the 90s, may have even been the late 80s. When I say the 90s, I'm talking like 90, 91. Schwarzenegger was on Letterman. Schwarzenegger came on Letterman and said they were working on a King Conan picture, and there was much applause. Now, this is all pre-internet, right? Well, pre-proper internet. It was Usenet, FTP, and Archie search back then. I remember seeing that and talking to my friends about it the next day. Did you watch Letterman last night? No. He said he was working on a new Conan movie. That sounds awesome. And nobody I've ever spoken to other than a subset of 3 fat nerds, and I'm one of them, remembers him being on Letterman and making that comment. Do any of you guys, the working on a King Conan movie, Conan, come to see it? Found an episode of the Young Indiana Jones where Harrison Ford appeared on the show as Indy with an Indian. That's pretty cool. Well, Ben, thanks, But then that's one of those things that just kicks around forever, And I just want to say in front of my audience of 10s, when it comes to movies and it comes to sci-fi, if Taika Waititi thinks he's going to get away with making an Akira film, I'll make that not happen. You guys will read in the Hollywood Reporter about my ass getting a restraining order slapped on me. You don't screw with the cyberpunk epic that is Otomo Katsushiro-san's Akira and set it in fucking California. Especially not from that hack. And you know what? I liked What We Do in the Shadows. Hell, I liked the Thor Ragnarok. But that guy giggling about ruining people's expectations, and the exact quote was, "I'll fuck up your fandom in an instant." I'm sorry for the foul language, Dungeon Minister, I get hot under the collar. Oh, Darkman was a good bad movie. Darkman was a great bad movie. I loved the first Darkman. Flash was a good bad movie. Not the Flash. I haven't seen that yet. The Phantom. The Phantom was a good bad movie. It was a very good bad movie. Well, say 10 Our Fathers and go forth and send no more Dungeon Minister. There's a YouTuber. I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want to get drawn into that sphere. He talks a lot about entertainment. He wears an old bandmaster's coat and what looks like a fan recreation of Marvin the Paranoid Android's head as a mask. And he calls him he calls J.J. Abrams Productions bad reboot. And I actually kind of like that. I think the guy himself is kind of a nitwit, but Scanners is a good bad movie. Rocketeer was good. Flash Gordon, a great bad. Flash Gordon is a phenomenal bad movie. Everything about that movie should suck, and it does, but it's fantastic. Werewolves, not swirls. Yes. And the TV show is great, too. The TV show is fun. As creatures of the night, we are very interested in finding out more about this superb owl. They're talking about the Super Bowl. Hey. Am I alone in... Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for the super. Am I alone in hoping current Hollywood stays a hell away from our favorite IPs? No, you are not. You're also not alone in hoping that my cat stops trying to make the monitor hers. This is my boyfriend now. Love the monitor. Oh, yeah, the Black... Rowan Atkins... One of the saddest... So, I used to work in a shopping mall that is attached to a massive 5-star hotel here in town. It is very near to the Orlando International Airport, and it is almost a straight shot via easy to navigate back roads, if you know where you're going, to Disney. It was called the Florida Mall. Super chat if you love Kitty. But anyway, I'm going to... Anyway, this is relevant to what Engine Joe said about Blackadder. So, Blackadder... lots of celebrities would stay at the hotel if they were doing like promotional stuff, one-offs, or just visiting the town. And summer hours were insane because we were neck deep in Brazilian tourists. You know, just a retail $6 an hour job in the 90s, and then you could pick up like 55 or 60 hours a week, right? So I go in and like, I did something unheard of in the summer. I got 2 days in a row off. That means I came home on a Tuesday and I woke up on a Wednesday and I didn't have to face a 2-hour bus ride to the mall. I was in heaven. 2 days off. I come back. This was right around the time The Lion King released. I come back to find out Rowan Atkinson had been staying in the penthouse of the Sheraton. And because the hotel bar was closed, he went down to the little chain bar, the Ruby Tuesdays, that was attached to the mall. All of my coworkers heard about him being down there and went and hung out with Rowan Atkinson at the Ruby Tuesdays, where he held court all evening, cracking people up. It was basically a private Rowan Atkinson show. Some of them got autographs. I got 2 days off. So, yeah, so it would have been around, it would have been around summer of 94, I'm guessing. Your ideal Sgt. Pepper album would include Gygax and Rowan Atkinson. That's awesome. Don't hold back, Left Hand of Darkness. Let us know how you feel about it, buddy. It's over there like Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Hate. Let me describe to you how much I've come to hate since I first saw Mr. Beam. Inside my person, there are 261 billion miles of circuit cards, and if you printed the word hate on every nanoangstrom of every mile of circuit card, it would not begin to express the hatred that I feel for Mr. Bean in this very instant. Hate! Thank you again, Jimmy, for the super. 1994 was when you discovered AD&D. That's awesome. You came into the proper AD&D, though, right? I cannot believe that AD&D 2E was only 6 years old at that point. I can't believe that AD&D, or rather that D&D 5E will be 10 years old next year. I can't believe that people that play 3rd edition are called grognards. Hitchhiker's Guide is a good movie. Martin Freeman, Martin Freeman. I always said they should have made it in the 80s with Dudley Moore as Arthur Dent, and the guy Tom Baker as Ford Prefect. Of course, I said that they should have made Neuromancer back in the 1990s or late 1980s. I didn't understand turnaround back then. I didn't understand development hell. But if they had made it back then and said, "You, fat teenage idiot in Florida, who should we cast as Henry Dorset Case? Your first decision will be our last decision." I would have said unreservedly at the time, Michael Biehn. I said earlier that John Huston was how I heard Gandalf's voice for most of my life. In my mind's eye, Case looks like Michael Biehn looked in The Terminator and in Aliens. He had that look. Lean, hungry, dangerous, haunted. If you know the book Neuromancer and you know Michael Bihn's oeuvre, tell me that wouldn't have been the perfect casting. Tell me that wouldn't have been, and you'll be lying and you know it. The Death of Stalin is a good movie. The Death of Stalin is amazingly good. Well, boys, here's your dates for the night. I'll take the blonde. You can have the skinny brunette, as Zukov is holding up to AK-47s. Hey, RPG Grandma. Yes, Johnny Mnemonic is a very good bad. No, it is a bad movie. Yeah, I heard about that. Young Bean would have been perfect as Case. I don't know how AM can have such a high opinion of people. Dungeon Minister, absolutely watch it. Just understand, it is a black comedy. There are a couple of points where drop the comedy. When you're like, oh shit, yeah, this actually did happen, and that's not for funsies. They actually did this to people. And it kind of makes your blood run cold. Good night, Ben Nix. So I'll tell you, I'll close on this story because it's been 2 hours and I haven't really talked about anything RPG related, but there you go. It's like the wish gem in tonight's thumbnail, right? I wish Bill would talk about RPG material. The gem will pervert all wishes cast on it. I like that as the voice, but not the mental image. McConaughey would be a great Dixie Flatline voice. I picture the Dixie Flatline as kind of looking like me. Fat, pasty, pale guy, receding gray hairline, scraggly beard. Matthew McConaughey is not this. Matthew McConaughey is the polar opposite of this. But yes, the voice would be perfect. Yes, more people do need to know about it. So here's my Death of Stalin 250,000 what is it? The 250,000 degrees removed. You have 6 degrees at Kevin Bacon. I look over my next door neighbor's house over here one afternoon, and there's one of our little town's police cars, and they sit there 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 all day. I liked my next door neighbors at the time. Buscemi would be an excellent cast as the Finn. That is some genius level casting, Jimmy. At the time, I thought Richard Belzer would have been a good call. Back in the 80s, I thought Belzer could probably have done a good Finn. Yes, these conversations are my appendix N. So anyway, and I'm waiting and he's not moving. And I'm worried I'm starting to be concerned about my neighbor at this point. I'm starting to be concerned about me. I'm starting to wonder if this guy is like working on like a citation because, my lawn needed cut or something, because I get those. So finally, I'm just like, I go out there and the guy's just kind of sitting there. And I go over and I say, I'm so sorry for bothering you. Is everything okay with Inez? I saw any. It turns out she was starting to suffer from the effects of dementia. And while her daughter was out of the house, she had basically gotten scammed over the phone. And it was kind of a tipping point for her care situation. I look for anyway. So I go over there and I'm talking to him. I thought someone had sent something to me, but and he explained this to me, and as I'm talking to the guy, he has thick Russian accent. The guy's like as big around as my arm, but he has this incredibly thick Russian accent. And above his badge is his name tag, and it says Zhukov. And so I turn around to walk to the house. I'm like, I gotta ask. So I go back over to the car and I said, hey, I don't want to, I'm sorry for bothering you again. I saw the name Zhukov. Are you, and I heard your accent, are you by any chance distantly or directly related to the great Soviet general, Georgy Zhukov? And his face lit up and he said, no, I'm named after my uncle who was named for Zhukov. Not too many people know this, and so we chit-chatted for a little while and we talked about the death of Stalin and, because that whole lot of conspirators and bastards, I hope they're handcuffed ankle to wrist in hell. The lot of them. Actually, I take that back. Georgy Malenkov, when he was forcibly retired, went home and became a church alderman and a choir leader. And I hope he made peace with God and sought forgiveness and received, his reward for that. I hope they all did, but I think they were all, with the exception of him, ardent atheists. But anyway, the point is, outside of them, Zhukov was such a badass and such a bro. The dude was a bro. When the Allies met in Berlin, Allied soldiers that got to meet him kept plying him with Coca-Cola, and he fell in love with it. And he told Eisenhower, I must have Coca-Cola. And he said, I'll have a case shipped to you at home. And he said, I can't be seen drinking capitalist drink. So they did one run of like 6,000 bottles of Coca-Cola. They put it in beer bottles, clear beer bottles that were made in Austria. And they had a food chemist take the caramel coloration out. Otherwise, it was the same. And it didn't have the Coca-Cola label on it, but he got his Coca-Cola, a limited run of bottles of Coca-Cola. And Eisenhower sent him, when they got to talking, he's like, well, what do you like to do? I said, well, I like to fish. And he said, I love to fish. I don't have the time to, don't have as much time as I'd like to. Eisenhower talking to Zhukov. And for his birthday one year, Eisenhower sent Zhukov a tackle box, a rod, reels, the whole shebang. And so the story goes, until he passed away, that was the fishing tackle that Grigory Zhukov used. And I think that's pretty neat. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to leave it there, guys, with a little bit of political legerdemain on behalf of Ike. And tomorrow night, guys, David S. LaForce, Diesel LaForce, will be on the show. I'm very excited about it, and I'm looking forward to him being here. So that will be 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Bring your questions. This guy is one of the dudes. Amazing artwork, amazing classic AD&D artwork. He's right up there with Errol and DCS and DAT. So be here promptly at 8, and we'll talk to him and we'll have a lot of fun. Until then, everyone, be good to each other. I love you all. I will ask you a favor on your departure, and it is simply this, as always. Have you seen my owl bear?
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. crooked horse without a saddle, way off course. Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.